Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here in the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 AM and FM stations across the great state of Michigan. Here every week, and I mean every week. I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I don't want to jinx myself, but I don't think we have ever missed a show. Now, hey, listen, you never know what's going to happen, right? I mean, things can happen. Plans can change, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I will not miss a show for the next 10 years or however long I'm going to be behind this microphone. But I will do my best not to, because I'm here for 3 hours every week talking about the great outdoors here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond, talking about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and even some wild game cooking. In all, a celebration of the outdoor lifestyle. And it's more than just a hobby, isn't it? For most of us, hunting or fishing or trapping or whatever it is that we do, it's not a hobby. Gardening is a hobby. Golf is a hobby. Crocheting is a hobby. This is a lifestyle for us. It's something that many of us grew up in. For many of us, it's part of our family history and tradition. It's something we want to keep alive for future generations. And it's not just a hobby. Because when we're not out hunting or fishing or shooting or trapping, we are thinking about it. We are planning for our next trip. We are buying new gear and equipment. We're talking about it with our friends, with our buddies. We're following such activities online. It is, in short, again, a way of life. And here in our great state, we have a lot to be proud of. By the time you hear this show, depends. They may have drawn the Pure Michigan Hunt winners. As I am sitting here in the studios right now recording this week's show, they haven't drawn them yet, but as I've been telling you for the last several weeks, I won. I did. I won. And if you are listening after they drew the hunt winners and they didn't draw my name, there was a mistake, because I won this year. And I'd be happy to share the waterfowl hunting tags with you. I've been seeing a lot of interest this winter in rabbit hunting, and I think that is great. There is nothing more wonderful than the sound of beagles chasing rabbits in the wintertime here in Michigan. It's a great wintertime outdoor tradition, a great way to get kids involved in the outdoors, a great social event. You know, unlike deer hunting, or maybe even turkey hunting, or bear hunting, or something like that, which tends to be more of a solitary sport. You're out there usually by yourself, or at least in a very small group, and you got to be quiet. You can't make a lot of noise. You can't move around a lot, which makes it tough for kids, right? If you want to introduce a kid to the outdoors, you don't take them out in the deer woods as their first experience. Take them out rabbit hunting. You can talk, you can shoot the breeze, you can watch the dogs work, you can hear them. If you get a shot at a rabbit, great. If you don't, that's okay too. That's one of the reasons I love rabbit hunting. It's a part of our tradition, plus it's a great way to get kids involved in the outdoors. Also seeing a very big interest now in bobcats here in our state, and I think that's in part because we're seeing more cats around our state. I think that's twofold. I think the bobcat population is indeed growing. I believe in numbers, but also geographically. We're seeing more bobcats in the central part of the Lower Peninsula than we have before. But also the fact that there's so many trail cameras out there now. Think about this. If you saw a bobcat in the past, you were lucky because you just happened to be there, say when you were out deer hunting or something, when a bobcat wandered by. And the odds of that, even in an area with lots of cats, is pretty slim. But if you have a trail camera out there, especially a cellular trail camera, you can keep an eye on everything that's going on out there in the woods. So we're seeing more cats. Maybe not a huge increase in the number, but we're seeing more of them. I think a lot of reasons because of trail cameras. Did you see Arizona, and I think Utah now, have banned the use of trail cameras for hunting? You can still use them for wildlife research projects, and you can still use them for watching wildlife, but you can't use them for hunting. You combine that with proposed legislation in Arizona right now, in Colorado, that would ban mountain lion hunts and bobcat hunts and lynx hunts, even though lynx are protected federally. What does that tell you right there? When the antis are pushing for something like that, it's a preemptive strike. They're trying to get ahead of things. We need to keep an eye on such things. The anti-hunting groups do not look at the world the way we look at the world. I think they have a skewed perspective, and I don't respect their agenda. But I do have to respect the fact that they seem to be pretty dedicated in what they want to accomplish. And they are extraordinarily well organized, and they are incredibly well funded. And that makes them very dangerous. And they seem to be having the ability to infiltrate fish and game management organizations, primarily in the West right now, but keep an eye on it here in Michigan as well. Really something to keep an eye on. It has me very, very concerned. A couple of things bringing it back closer to home. You may have, if you've been listening at all, you know that I've had a guy on the show here several times now. His name is Jordan Farmer, very well-known houndsman here in Michigan. He lost another dog, another hound, to wolves last week in the UP. It's not the first dog he's lost. In fact, he's going to join me here in the show in just a few minutes to talk about that. But it brings up the issue of wolves here in Michigan and why we don't have a wolf hunt here in Michigan. And I will bring this back to this whole anti-hunting craze. The feds, it's my understanding at least, the feds have delisted wolves. So you can have a wolf hunt. So it's up to the state managers. I am convinced that the powers that be in Michigan do not have the heart to push for a wolf hunt. From the governor on down through the NRC into the DNR. I don't believe they have the heart to push for a wolf hunt. And they'll tell you that they're preoccupied with CWD, with COVID, with funding issues. And I pray that that is really the reason. I pray that it's not because they're starting to get some chirping in their ears and some outside pressure from these anti-hunting groups. I believe firmly that the DNR does not have the heart to get into a fight with the anti-hunting groups again. I just don't think it's high enough on their agenda that they want to push for it. I think they believe that there are other things more important that they want to push for. And that's fine unless you live in some part of the state in the UP where there is a genuine wolf problem. So we'll talk with Jordan Farmer about that. Speaking of large predator hunts, Kris Derson of Rapid River Knifeworks, who will also be on the show this week, was out in Idaho. And he killed a huge mountain lion. Cougar, puma, whatever you want to call it. Legally, of course. Kris wouldn't do anything illegal, and I wouldn't post an illegal harvest on my page. But I did post those pictures on my page, and I was very disappointed at the negative comments that it drew. Obviously, a lot from the anti-hunters. I expect that. But the negative comments from so-called fellow hunters, that's what disappoints me the most. When people say, well, I believe in rabbit hunting, I believe in deer hunting, but I don't believe in hunting a mountain lion. Well, what is it? You've got to decide, do you support sound scientific wildlife management practices which involves the harvest of predators to make for a healthier wildlife population, or don't you? You can't pick and choose. You can't say, I support deer hunting, but I don't support bear hunting. I support grouse hunting, but I don't support wolf hunting. Well, what is it? We're all in this together, and as hunters, I think we need to really take a serious look at who our real enemies are. Yes, I talk about the anti-hunting groups that we're seeing out west right now. Let's keep them out of Michigan if we can. We can't, but let's do our best to keep aggravating them and fighting them. But I think the bigger threat is fellow hunters not supporting each other. Because if we don't support each other, and we become fragmented again, or still, should I say, the anti-hunters come into a state like Michigan. They say, what's weak? What's weak? Well, we can't get rid of deer hunting right away, but boy, we can sure get rid of the hound hunting, or we can get rid of the bear hunting. It's a real situation and something that we cannot put our heads into the sands and continue to ignore. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show after the break, Jordan Farmer, the UP houndsman who lost that dog from a wolf attack. I'll talk with him about that. Then Nick Green of MUCC follows up on a conversation we had last week about a proposal, a piece of legislation to get guides, hunting guides, licensed in Michigan. There's a lot of confusion about that. We'll probably talk about wolves as well. In hour number 2, Kris Derson talking about that mountain lion hunt. And in hour 3, we're going fishing in St. Joe in the southwest part of the state with Jerry Link and, of course, Dave Miner here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear the show in Battle Creek on 95.3 WBCK. And you can hear us in Caro on 2 stations, WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. I want to turn my attention now to a guy I've had on the show here several times. I find him to be a very, very interesting guy. His name is Jordan Farmer, and he's a very well-known houndsman here in Michigan. He likes to run his dogs for bear, coyotes somewhat, and also bobcat, especially bobcat this time of year. Last time we had him on, he was talking about the success he had bobcat hunting in the UP and how he was looking forward to the rest of the season. But something's happened now that has kind of put a damper on that, and I wanted to bring Jordan back on, and he has graciously agreed to join us. Jordan, welcome back. Appreciate your time. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me again. We were me and my brother were out hunting, out bobcat hunting. We found a nice tom track, and we let 4 dogs go, and they all went in cold trailing, and one of the younger dogs actually ended up jumping the cat and getting it on its feet, and kind of took it out in front of all the other dogs. And so I went and caught up with that dog, the younger dog that had the bobcat going, and my brother stayed with the back dogs to make sure they came through. And I got to the dog that was running the cat, and she was, just doing what they're supposed to do. They're circling the cat, and we were sitting there listening to her run it, and all of a sudden she just a noise that I can't even explain it. It wasn't a bark or a holler, or it was just like a scream, and all of a sudden after that it just went dead quiet. And so I ran in there as fast as I could. She was about 500 yards from me, and I ran in there as quick as I could. And by that time, a couple of those back dogs were coming through, and the one dog was right next to me, 20 feet from me. And all of a sudden she did the same thing, just this horrible noise, just a scream, holler, whatever you want to call it. And I looked up, and here's 2 wolves had her pinned down under a downed cedar tree, and one was on one end and one was on the other, pretty much trying to pull her apart. So I pulled out my gun, and if they're attacking your dogs, your livestock now in Michigan, you're legally allowed to use lethal means. So that's what I did. And then after that, my brother gathered that dog up, make sure she was all right and didn't need to go to the vet. And I made my way over to the other dog, which was about 70 yards away, and she was laying there in a puddle of blood, dead. So, yeah.
This happened right in front of you, within sight?
Yeah. The first dog, like I say, we were about 500 yards from her when it happened. I mean, we heard the whole thing go down, we heard it. But yeah, the second dog that got attacked, yeah, I mean, they were 20 feet. They left, they killed the first dog, and they heard that other dog coming, and they left the dead dog to come to kill the next dog that they heard, is what they did. That's exactly what they did while we were there. What
part of the UP was this?
We were in the central southern part of the UP.
Do you want to say county or not really?
Yeah, we were in Delta County.
So this is not the first run-in you've had with wolves and your dogs.
No, by far from the first. This will be the second dog that they've killed on me now.
I listen, don't take this the wrong way. I don't mean to sound cold-hearted, but some people are going to say, look, if you know there's wolves up there, why are you taking your dogs in?
Oh, yeah. I got a lot of that. I put a post on Facebook about it, and I got a lot of anti-hunters on there telling, well, you know the wolves are there, so why are you doing it? Why, and I don't know. I'm not just gonna give up my lifelong tradition. I mean, that's what I do. This is what I do, and we're allowed to do this, and we should be able to do this without these kind of incidences. And we're not just gonna give up and say forget it. I mean, this is what we live for.
Did you know there were wolves in that section you were running that day?
No matter where you go in the UP, that's always what the DNR tells you. We'll go somewhere where there's not wolves. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, I mean, we've exhausted that excuse. I mean, that's over with. There is not a part in the UP that you can go that there isn't a wolf. And that's the honest to God's truth. I mean, there is absolutely nowhere you can go, So yeah, I mean, we knew that there was probably wolves around. But we didn't have, fresh tracks right on top of everything, but it's always a possibility, I
mean. And when they hunt your dogs like this, I find it very interesting. And in fact, a little bit disturbing the way they do it. I mean, there's no evidence they're coming in on your dogs. They're just there, right?
Yeah. And that's what I mean. The DNR tries to tell you, well, make sure that there's not wolves here or there, wherever you're going to be, it's impossible. You can't tell that. I mean, yeah, you can drive around a section if you're lucky enough that you're hunting a spot that you can get around all four sides of it or whatever. But a lot of times that's not the case. And these sections are so big, a wolf could go into a section and be there for a week, and not come out, so you don't know what's going to be in these spots that you're hunting, you don't know.
If I remember right, and maybe I'm getting my stories confused here, but the first dog that you lost, I don't think you were armed at that point, but I noticed you are this time. You were this time.
Yep. Yeah, I wasn't. I wasn't armed the first time. That's one of the biggest regrets I've ever had, I think, is not being armed that day. And those wolves, actually, that day, we were bear hunting on the first time I got a dog killed. And those wolves, actually, I had to climb a tree to get away from them. They came within 5-10 feet from me and wouldn't back down,
Were you shooting to kill these wolves or shooting to scare them off?
Well, shooting to kill, but whatever I don't care. Just as long as they were gone and away from me and my dogs.
Yep. Now, in a situation like that, I mean, do you have to call the game wardens in because you shot at a wolf? How does that work?
Yep. I called right after all this happened. We took pictures and everything and marked where it happened on our GPSs with the coordinates and everything. And as soon as we got out of the woods and had cell phone service, we called the DNR and I reported it and told them, the exact story of what happened and gave them the coordinates. And I do know that a technician went in and checked it out and confirmed everything. And I believe that law enforcement was notified that, shots were fired or whatever, but it was all justified. It was a justified deal. So I haven't heard anything more.
The thing that bothers me about these wolf encounters in the UP is, and I keep hearing this over and over, is that the animals have no fear of man.
Yep.
Up in Ontario where I've hunted wolves, they have a healthy fear of man, but these wolves in the UP just are not afraid of people.
Yep. And Mike, I think that's the big thing too. We're not asking for an extinction of the wolves in Michigan. That's not what any hunter wants. We want them here. But we want to be able to manage them. We have to be able to manage them. You can't leave a predator like that and not manage that, and if we could manage them, just like you said, you're going to put, fear into them. They're going to understand that, okay, here's a human. I need to stay away from them, because right now they don't have any fear. They don't care. They don't care if there's a human or a dog or anything else around. They just simply don't care.
As of the time we are recording this, there is a Wolf Advisory Committee meeting scheduled for later in the week. Are you going to be there?
Yes, absolutely. Wednesday.
Will you, or as people are hearing this show, did you speak to the group?
Yes, I'm going to speak. Yes.
What are you going to tell them?
I don't know. I've had a million thoughts go through my head the last couple of days about it, and I'm not sure what more we can say that they haven't heard. They've heard it all, but I guess I'm just going to tell my story and what happened, and just tell them we need to hunt. We need to manage them. We need to do something. I don't know what, but we just need to do something, because it's right out of hand.
You said you're not going to give up your way of life because of the wolves. Will you? And you've lost 2 dogs now.
Yeah.
Are you going to keep hunting this winter?
Yeah, I'll keep hunting. I don't know if it'll be up here. I might make my way downstate where there is no wolves, but I'll keep hunting. I didn't this last weekend. I didn't even feel like hunting. Usually I do, but I just really took the wind out of my sails, to go, I guess.
Well, I know these dogs are, they're like part of your family. I know how houndsmen are with your dogs. These are very special to you guys, and to lose them and have it happen right in front of you like this. I can't even imagine it, Jordan.
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible thing that I wish nobody had to go through,
But you said you have, the online critics, right? You said you've been getting some grief from those people.
Oh yeah, big time. All over, private messages and comments, and just a bunch of stuff.
Well, the fact that you get that criticism and you still are a stand-up guy and you'll come on the show and talk to me, Jordan, says a lot, and I do appreciate it. Again, I am really sorry for what happened. I hope we never have to have this conversation again, but I appreciate you spending some time with us to talk about this.
Yep, absolutely, Mike. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, Jordan Farmer, I appreciate that. Jordan, a guy who we've had here on the Outdoor Magazine show before. He is a noted houndsman here in the great state of Michigan, and he's not the first guy I've talked to that's lost dogs. I know of several situations like this now where this has happened. And, people are saying, what's it going to take? Going to take for a kid to be attacked by wolves? Is that what it's going to take to make something happen? The answer to that one, my friends, will be is somewhere out there in the future. We're just going to have to wait and see. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, Nick Green of MUCC follows up with a conversation we had last week about licensing guides here in Michigan. There's a lot of confusion about that. Details coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ, 1090 AM, and north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. That's a long, long time now. What is it, 76 years now? These days, Boning continues to innovate and come up with new products for bow hunters and target archers as well. If you shoot a bow and you're at all serious about it, there's a good chance you're using Boning products somewhere. And if not, maybe you should be. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING, boning.com. I want to follow up now on a conversation we had on last week's show that actually raised a lot of questions. Nick Green of MUCC joined me last week to talk about some proposed legislation that would license hunting guides and some inland fishing guides as well. And I got a lot of follow-up questions on that, and it seemed that some people thought, well, they're already licensed. And, you know, I know Great Lakes charter captains are, but something more than that. So Nick has graciously agreed to join us once again and follow up on that and more. Nick, welcome back. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm still trying to get my shoes off so I can count my fingers and toes and check your boning math. How many years they've been around.
Am I right?
That's pretty cool. I think you are. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
A real pleasure. Listen, I was talking about this conversation we had on last week's Wednesday Night Live, and I had a lot of people jump on there and say, well, listen, Michigan hunting guides are already licensed, including, Nick, some bear hunting guides who said they're already licensed. So I'm confused on this.
Yeah, so I think the first part to remember in Michigan, backing up a little bit, is we have several kinds of public lands, what we kind of consider public lands. So the first is federal. These are our national forests. When you think about the Upper Peninsula, a lot of that is federal land. A lot of that is another kind of land, which we're going to talk about in a second. Second kind of land is like our state-managed land, so that's our state forests. Those are state game areas. Those are, recreation areas, things like that. And then we have what's called commercial forests, which are private land that is leased or kind of an easement to the state, if you will, for hunting, fishing, outdoor recreation purposes. So those are kind of the three main types of land. When we talk about the federal land in Michigan, the feds already require a very strict permitting, insurance. The guides have to have insurance. There's a lot more costs associated with it. And what the feds say is you must do all of this and abide by state laws. So in order for guides who are currently licensed to the feds to continue to guide, they would just have to go through the kind of simple motions of becoming licensed in Michigan, what our bill package has that we'll talk about. So those are very minimal compared to what those federal folks are already doing. Commercial forest is off the table. These lands are private lands that are kind of leased back to the state. They can't be guided on legally. They can't be used for a commercial purpose if they're going to be enrolled in that program. And then the third type of land are our state lands. So those are, inland lakes, our state forests that we talked about, our state game areas. That's where most of this would apply to, with the caveat and exception of waterways that connect to the Great Lakes. So the feds have their own system, in our national forests for regulating guides, and that says you must have all of this. It's well beyond what we're asking, plus abide by state laws. They also have a waterways, regulation system that applies to charter captains, anyone guiding on waterways that connect to the Great Lakes. So this bill would not apply to those folks that are already certified under the U.S. Coast Guard and state of Michigan regulations. So that's probably clear as mud. It's tough to lay this all out. What I want folks to understand is that the asks that we're making here, and we'll get to, these are very minimal in comparison to what the feds are already doing, what the Coast Guard already requires some of our guides. what we're really trying to do is capture all of the guides on state land who are not on the Great Lakes or connecting waterways.
Okay, now I'm starting to understand. So some people who are out there are already covered under federal regulations, but you wanted to get this so it included state lands as well.
Yes, and even on, as I said, on the federal side, they would still have to do this because the federal law says you have to do all these things, which are well above and beyond what we're asking, and abide by state law.
So what is it that you're asking?
So kind of the main asks are the bill, and this is transformed through probably 6 years, several sessions. This is a policy that our membership has had on the books since 1997. Where we're at now, and again, this has been watered down and taken a lot of forms, it would be a $150 3-year fee per resident, so $50 a year, or a $300 fee, 3-year fee for non-residents. It would require, and this is really important, it would require data collection. So this is what, for example, the U.S. Coast Guard, the state of Michigan already require from our charter captains, from our inland waterways guides. So that's one of the reasons that those folks aren't included in this legislation. They're already.
Nick, it was unfair of me to ask you that last question. We didn't have time. We've got to take a break. When we come back, though, I will throw that out to you again so you can answer it in full. We're talking with Nick Green of Michigan United Conservation Clubs, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Escanaba on WCHT, that's 600 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSGM 94.9, and you can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. You know I love that. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Right now we're talking with Nick Green of MUCC. He is their Chief Information Officer. And just a reminder, if you want to save 25% on signing up for your MUCC membership, use my promo code Mike, all caps, M-I-K-E. You can join a great conservation organization and save 25%. Nick, again, I apologize for cutting you off before the break. I hate it when I do that, so I'm going to re-ask the question so you can, we make sure we get it in there. What is it that you're asking as far as licensing Michigan hunting guides and inland fishing guides?
Yeah, so on top of the 150-year, 3-year registration fee for residents, $300 fee for non-residents, and then data collection, as I was talking about before the break, similar to what is already required by the Coast Guard and DNR on the Great Lakes and connecting waterways. And this data is going to be vital for biologists in helping them to kind of determine, what impact, if any, guides are having on the resource. Do we need to adjust regulations? Do we need to look closer at certain species in certain areas? So another ask is that this would apply to public land that is open to hunting and fishing, obviously with the exception of commercial forests. All guides must have a valid base or fishing license. That's pretty standard. They would have a state identification card or driver's license, again, pretty standard. We're asking that they are CPR certified. This is something that it's caused a little bit of contention, but I would hope that when folks are calling guides regardless, they're asking this question. This is important. If things happen in the Upper Peninsula bear hunting and you're, 30, 40, 50 miles from anywhere, you need to have someone who knows how to perform CPR, who knows how to give you a little better chance to live if something happens. And then the last ask is a person must not have been convicted of a felony or certain game violations. This includes things like hunter harassment, unlawful taking of game, unlawful selling of game. This isn't meant to be someone who gets a speeding ticket or who accidentally, didn't display their fishing license but had one. This is really meant to try to weed out the nefarious bad actors. So that's kind of a rundown of what we're hoping to ask. What we are asking, excuse me.
Now, it's not a lot of money we're talking about, but where will this money go if it's generated from these license fees?
Yeah, so this will go into the Game and Fish Protection Fund. So this is essentially what our department uses to manage our wildlife and fisheries. And essentially that's, a lot of that's going to be the oversight. We're not going to pretend and act like these fees from guides are going to cover the CO oversight of this program. But the department stakeholders, we feel that the trade-off is the valuable biological data that will be gathered and allow us to kind of, look to the future, think about how we manage things with relationship to guides and in the general public.
And this is in the legislature right now?
This is. So these are House Bills 5358, 5359, and 5360, currently going to be in the House Natural Resources Committee in the next coming weeks, and then we'll be hoping to move it from the House.
I appreciate that, Nick. Thanks for following up on that. Hey, one other question for you before I let you go. And if I'm ambushing you, it's not my intent. So again, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. But I had Jordan Farmer on the show here a few minutes ago, and he was in the UP bobcat hunting. He lost another dog to wolves, which again raises the question about a wolf hunt here in Michigan. Is this in the state's hands or the Fed's hands, or what's the roadblock here?
So if you'll remember, right before Trump left the presidency, the administration delisted wolves. The Biden administration looked at that again, and that delisting has stood. The Biden administration hasn't said they're going to overturn that. However, that was challenged in a federal court in California by, the usual suspects, Center for Biological Diversity, HSUS. And what at least our state is saying now is, what's happened and what we've seen in the past is we go through all these motions and then they just get listed again. Mm-hmm. So what the state keeps saying, wrong or right, and there are passionate people, that believe this isn't the approach we should be taking. Wrong or right, the state is saying we really would like to see some kind of settlement come out of this federal issue before we go down the road of doing, of a hunt. Mm-hmm. Of implementing what this is going to look like. So again, wrong or right, that's kind of where that's the approach our state has taken. You can look at Wisconsin and see the approach they took, mm-hmm. And they're not going to have a hunt. That was the worst thing that could have happened for any state wanting to hunt wolves. That disaster that happened.
Oh, terrible. Last very quick question. Is this the governor, the NRC, the DNR, or all parties combined in this?
I would say this is the administration. This is certainly not the Natural Resources Commission. This is out of their hands. I mean, they need to have a plan before they can even, bring it up. But they could bring it up tomorrow, I guess, if they wanted to. But the process is to have the wolf management plan that we're working through right now in front of them. But the roadblock in our mind, and maybe not a roadblock, the voice saying, hey, let's get some kind of resolve at a larger, level, is the administration.
Nick, always a pleasure. Appreciate your time. Nick Green, the Chief Information Officer for the Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Again, the website, mucc.org, mucc.org. Use the promo code Mike, all caps, M-I-K-E, and save 25% on your MUCC membership. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Kris Derson of Rapid River Knives tells the story of the hunt of a lifetime where he took a giant mountain lion and the hassle he's getting because of it. Coming up in hour 2 of Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network, heard on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Yes, this is indeed first and foremost a radio show. And I think the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. They get the content before the podcast is uploaded. Plus, you want to listen to your local your local on-air people. You want to hear your local sports. You want to hear your local commercials. I mean, radio is a great, great venue for information and entertainment. And I appreciate being able to work with so many radio stations across the great state of Michigan. Because, again, this show is, first and foremost, a radio show. And I make this distinction because there really aren't, there might be more than you think, but there aren't that many syndicated outdoor radio shows at the state level across the country. In fact, as I look around, I think the Outdoor Magazine show is one of the biggest statewide radio shows in the country. And I have to admit, I am, you're not supposed to be prideful, but I am proud of that, and thank you. But everybody's got a podcast. And listen, I got nothing against podcasts. I love podcasting. In fact, I make the radio show available as a podcast. So if you can't hear it on your local station, you have that opportunity. You can hear my podcast on the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. It's on my Facebook page, Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, yada, 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 yada. All the podcasting platforms, even YouTube. I put a version of the radio show podcast on YouTube. Also, like I said, I do love podcasting. I do monthly podcasts for Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Primal Podcast. Primal Tree Stands is my newest one. Polar Craft Boats. In fact, when we get done recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Polar Craft Boats podcast as well. Regardless, though, of how you listen to the show, whether it's the broadcast version or podcasts, the fact that you're hearing my voice right now does certainly mean a lot to me. There's a lot of content out there these days, more than ever. You as a consumer, you as a listener, there's a lot of different options. There are a lot of different options out there for you. And the fact that you have chosen to listen to this Outdoor Magazine show means a lot to me, and I do truly appreciate it. I also appreciate the fact that I have been able to partner with so many wonderful companies, most of them Michigan-based and family-owned outdoor-related companies over the years. I think that is a tremendous blessing. And I include Kris Derson and his company, Rapid River Knifeworks, in that group as well. I've got a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. I always carry that knife. I use it on a daily basis. I think a knife is one of the most valuable, useful tools you can have. And I always say, if you're going to carry a knife, why not make it a Michigan-made, handmade knife from Rapid River Knifeworks? I've got Kris back on the show this time, and we'll maybe talk a little bit about knives. But first of all, Kris, welcome back. How are you?
I'm great, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate your time. I wanted to talk about this hunting adventure that you had. Now, you're obviously a very avid Michigan outdoorsman, but every once in a while, isn't it nice if you get an opportunity to go somewhere else and check out the adventures that the rest of our country or the rest of the world has to offer?
Yeah, absolutely. I love hunting in Michigan, and I've hunted in Michigan my whole life, and this mountain lion hunt thing that we're about ready to talk about, something that I've been wanting to do my whole life, and finally got an opportunity to go out and do it, and boy, the mountains kicked my butt.
I hear that from everybody who goes out there. Where did you end up, Kris?
So I ended up in Riggins, Idaho. It's actually in the Rocky Mountains, but it's maybe an hour south of the Canadian border. Way up in that tiny slice at the top of Idaho.
Oh, wow. And how did this hunt come about? It's something you dreamed about forever, or a last-minute opportunity that you couldn't pass up on?
No, this is a hunt that I had actually had planned, about almost 2 years ago. And my dad and I were supposed to go on this hunt last year at the same time. And a week before the hunt, I broke my hands. And so my outfitter told me, listen, you can't come out here and hunt these conditions with a broken hand. Mm. So we couldn't go. So this year was the year. And nobody that read that post, they didn't put this in there, but 3 days before I left for Idaho, my father passed away. Mm. and he was supposed to be with me. So, very difficult.
It had to be, well, a couple of things. A wonderful, rewarding, emotional hunt, but your dad was looking over your shoulder on this hunt, Kris. I'm convinced of that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You talked about you talked about the conditions there in the mountains. Why? What was it like? I mean, a lot of people in Michigan have never seen the Rockies. So what were you dealing with?
You're dealing with just brutal hiking conditions that first of all, the altitude, roughly 7,800 to 10,500 feet elevation, which, we're just not used to here. I've been on many bear hunts with hounds where you might go 3-4 miles through a cedar swamp and you feel like you're winded, but you just have no idea what that altitude will do to your body, just walking, let alone, walking 8 to 10 miles a day in that altitude and going after a big cat like that, an apex predator, is it's the most challenging thing that I've ever done. Hunting-wise in my entire life.
And probably because of that, one of the most rewarding hunts as well.
The most rewarding, by far, yes.
Was this a hound hunt?
Yes, it was. Yes. Yeah, so it was a combination mountain lion and wolf hunt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of layers to this story, and I kind of got a kick out of it. I knew there'd be a big backlash on if you posted those pictures on there, but
and there was.
We can get into the wolf situation in Idaho, later on.
Sure.
But there's actually, most people don't even know this, or probably half the country would be out there. Idaho's got such a wolf problem right now with the wolves just decimating their elk population that they've put a $3,500 per animal bounty on every wolf shot in the state of Idaho.
Can you imagine if they did that in the UP?
Yeah, they wouldn't be killing all of our deer anymore if they had done that here. But
hey, well, why? Let's back it up a step here, and I want to get to all these topics, but why? And this is what a lot of people were saying online. Why a mountain lion? A big, beautiful cat. That cat's not hurting anybody. He's living out there in the mountains. And why did you come in there, you mean old guy, and kill that cat?
Well, yeah, it is a big, beautiful animal. But at the same time, we're talking about wildlife management, predator management. And, a lot of the people that question that, why would you go do that, are also people that have pictures all over their social media of them holding their white-tailed deer or their big bull elk. It's the average mountain lion, which most people don't know, will kill 1 to 2 deer per week and 1 adult elk every 2 weeks all year long. So, and especially a cat the size that I shot. I mean, this cat, by what everybody's saying and by the initial green score, Boone and Crockett on this cat is going to be top 5 all time.
Oh my gosh!
So this cat is killing over 100 big game animals a year. So they have to be managed. If they're not managed, you won't be able to have that picture of that whitetail or that elk or that mule deer, because they're literally they're going to kill them all. So management is one big part of it, and I always want to do something different, try something new, something I've never done, and the mountain lion hunt is one of the most grueling hunts but rewarding hunts that you'll ever go on. So.
Hang tight, Kris. I want to follow up on that. I want to hear more about the details of this hunt and what it was like. I've obviously never done one, but the guys I've talked to who have been on these things say it is a grueling, intense experience, and I want to hear about your hunt. We're talking with Kris Derson of Rapid River Knives. RapidRiverKnifeworks.com is the website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. If you go Kris has posted some pictures of this and some explanations of the hunt. I have put a couple of pictures on my Facebook page and my Instagram page as well. And you know, people like Kris, and I'd like to think people like me, we're not saying, well, I'll speak for myself. I don't want to wipe out these top-tier predators. I think it's wonderful that we have some cougars and we have some wolves. I think it's beautiful. These top-tier apex predators have a place in our environment. They have a place in the wild, obviously. But in today's world, if man doesn't manage these populations, it's a snowball effect, and these deer or whatever that other people like to hunt, they're just not going to be there. So you've got to look at these top-tier apex hunts. If you support hunting and you support sound scientific wildlife management, you support it all. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM 106.9 FM. And you can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. And one more reminder, if you use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE, you can save 25% on your MUCC membership. While you are online, I would encourage you to head on over to RapidRiverKnifeworks.com, RapidRiverKnifeworks.com, the website of Michigan-based Rapid River Knives. I would strongly encourage you, if you get a chance, to stop by their showroom just outside Rapid River on US 2. It is absolutely, you're going to be shocked. Make sure you set aside some time, because when you walk in there, you're going to be blown away. The life-size mounts, the size of the showroom, the different knives. You can watch them make knives through the glass. It's just very, very impressive. Kris Derson is the man behind Rapid River. And Kris, congrats on this. You've built a very, very impressive Michigan-based, family-owned company.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Let's talk more about this Idaho mountain lion hunt that you just got back from. You killed a beautiful cat out there. But again, what was this hunt like? Was it how many days, and with snow conditions and all that good stuff?
Oh, so it was a 7-day hunt. I went out there with the idea in mind that we were going to be hunting with hounds similar to bear hounds, where you'd have a striker dog, and when you come across a track, that dog's just going to smell it, and he's gonna bark.
Yeah.
Well, the cats are different. They're a lot cleaner than bears, so they don't leave a whole lot of scent. So you have to find these tracks within 12 hours of when that cat had just crossed through there. So you can imagine how much ground you have to cover to find a fresh 12-hour-old cat track. So we started hunting the first 2 days. We hunted in this big gorge where these lions run the elk and the mule deer and the whitetail down into these river bottoms, and then the animals can't run out and the cats kill them. So we walked through there the first 2 days, and we had identified 8 completely different cats based on their tracks in a less than a mile.
Wow.
In this river bottom. So the cats are so hard to hunt. Very few people hunt them. So there's a lot of them. And a cat will, on average, which I didn't know this, a cat on average will have 5 kills at one time that are buried, that he walks from kill to kill and eats on, day to day based on conditions and pressure and what's out there and everything else. And so it's kind of an odd feeling to be walking through the woods and walk up on a fresh kill that's been completely buried, and to know that animal is watching you from the cliffs, because the cliffs on both sides go up 2,500 to 3,000 feet. So we had walked through there the first 2 days and found some old kills, but the tracks were too old to get on them. on the third day, we walked in and found a freshly buried whitetail that had just been killed but not eaten, but we found its track. So the hounds chased tracked that cat about 2,800 feet, almost straight up. The incline is almost indescribable. And the dogs were up there for about an hour and a half, and they eventually lost its scent, or the cat outran it. Something happened. So I was a little discouraged when the dogs start coming down the mountain. Not that I wanted to climb 3,000 feet, but if I had to, I was going to.
Yeah.
And so I start walking up this river that feeds the Big Salmon River, and I'm by myself, and I'm waiting. The houndsmen are waiting for their dogs to come back, and I get about 500 yards up this creek, and a bunch of birds take off, eagles and everything you can imagine. So I figured there was a fresh kill. Well, I didn't realize what I was walking into. I walk into literally a 700-pound dead elk laying there that's been eaten on. It's not been buried, and there are bloody cat tracks the size of my foot leaving the kill. So I start following these tracks up the river, and I look up for some reason, and at about 80 yards, there's a cat standing on a rock staring at me.
Wow.
So I have no hounds. I did have my pistol. I had my radio, and I pulled my pistol out. I called my houndsman, and I said, hey, I need you to send me the dogs right now. And he asked me why. And I said, because I'm looking at the cat, and this is not a shot that I'm going to take with a pistol.
Yeah.
So I could hear his dogs coming up the river, and when they got up there, they immediately smelled the cat and got on him. The cat jumped almost 20 feet across this creek, whatever you want to call it. And they took him back up another 2,800 feet, and the chase was on. And they treed the cat after about 25 minutes. And then it was up to us to get up to him and to eventually get to the top and get to this tree. So we started hiking, and about an hour and 45 minutes later, we get up there, and the cat's in the tree. And I'm thinking, all right, well, this thing's going to be 60 to 80 feet up in one of these great big pine trees they have out there. And to my surprise, we get up there, and the cat is in a tree 12 feet off the ground, and he's 3 times the size of what I had expected. And he didn't look like he wanted to stay. So it all happened. Once I got to the tree, it all happened pretty fast. I had a scope on my rifle, which at 12 feet isn't ideal. But I was able to make a great shot on the cat. It was all over pretty quick. And then we all kind of stood there in shock looking at the size of this thing from the tip of his nose to the tip of his tail. He was 9'6".
Jeez.
And you keep in mind, this cat had just by itself killed a 700-pound elk. And he had animals buried kind of all over the place in that area. And that was a big one that we had seen tracks from a couple of days earlier, but we were just lucky enough to get on the big one. And it was just an incredible experience, very emotional.
The timing of it, yeah, I can't even imagine that.
Well, it wasn't only that; it was just when you take an animal like that, it's just you're thankful, and you can't believe what you just accomplished, but at the same time you're very grateful for the animal. I mean, I saw a lot of comments on your page where people thought, we just go up there and you shoot it and then you mount it. No, it took us an hour and a half. We skinned out that entire animal, and we packed down every ounce of meat that we could take off of that animal. And we took the hide and everything for taxidermy purposes. But we also took all the meat. And then at base camp every night, we ate that meat, and we ate every ounce of it. And the mountain lion meat is some of the best meat you'll ever eat in your life.
That's what I've heard. I've never had it, but everybody I know who does says, man, if you ever get a chance to try mountain lion, eat it.
Absolutely. it's the best meat I've ever had, and which sounds it's very surprising.
Yeah,
because I had heard the same thing, but I had never had mountain lion meat. So that first night we had mountain lion meat, it was I was shocked, even though everybody had told me how good it was. I was shocked, but yeah, it was just an absolutely incredible experience. And I had told my outfitter, even when I went out there, I said, I'm not on this hunt just to kill. If we tree 5 cats and they're all real young cats, I'm perfectly fine going home without one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not this vicious killer. I was there for one size cat, and it was for a big cat. And if I left there without one, I would have been fine with that. In the end, it worked out to be way more than I ever expected. Both the size of the cat and the absolutely brutal hunting conditions and the emotion and everything involved in it was very overwhelming.
Hearing your story now, I know the answer to this, but I've got to ask because a lot of people ask me. You were never able to put this thing on a scale, see what he weighed, were you?
Oh, I wasn't. No, because we put it, we took it apart on, up on the mountain.
Sure.
We caped it out, obviously, with one of my knives. But, based on the pictures, I'm 5'11", 185 pounds, and the cat makes me look small. So this is the largest cat that these guys have been doing this for 40 years. And this is the largest cat that they've ever taken. So they estimated the size of the weight of this cat somewhere between 200 and 220 pounds, which is absolutely as big as they get.
Man.
They told me there's 3 sizes of cats. You typically get your 100 to 120 pound lions. And then the big cats are around 160. And then they said, then you have your legends, the big ones that, don't plan on seeing one. They're smart. They called them day walkers. So instead of hunting at night, they hunt during the day. For some reason, the big ones hunt during the day, and this one was hunting and walking during the day. He was literally following behind us in our footsteps as we'd leave, and he's killing animals right behind us. So I was able to kill the top tier cat, which I didn't go there to do that. I went for the experience and the experience of the hunt. And, wildlife management.
Yeah. And again, I'm convinced.
Don't go do it. That you have to control the pot.
Exactly.
I completely agree that it's an absolutely beautiful animal, but at the same time, if you don't control the population, I firsthand saw the devastation. I don't know how anything lives where, as far as whitetail deer or elk, whitetail, mule deer, or elk, I don't know how anything lives in those mountains because they literally kill so many animals. It's mind-boggling. It's hard to wrap your mind around. In 7 days, we found every bit of 60 animals that are buried.
Chris, out of time. Got to let you go. Your dad was looking over your shoulder. Congrats on a wonderful harvest. RapidRiverKnives.com, RapidRiverKnifeworks.com, RapidRiverKnifeworks.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. You can hear us in Haute Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Versa Skins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based family-owned Versa Skins. The website versaskins.com. You can go from blaze orange to snow camo to regular camo. All you have to do is snap on and zip on an outside shell, and you're ready to go for a new season. And you didn't have to buy a whole new hunting suit. It's versatile, well-made, and it'll save you money. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. While you're online, head on over to the Michigan DNR's website, michigan.gov/DNR. There is so much information on that site. And from the DNR with us now, Tim Cwalinksi. Tim, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Hey, you want to talk about sturgeon? I mean, that season's coming up, right?
Yeah, it is. It's hard to believe. Seems like we were just at Black Lake weeks ago, but it's been almost a year. So, yep, season starts the first Saturday in February, as it always does.
Always does. That part of the state has a long history and tradition of sturgeon, and I think it's wonderful how people still relate to that giant fish even today.
Yeah, certainly, big fish attract people, not just anglers, but sightseers and big fish. And, to some people, they're a trophy harvest fish. To some, they're part of our heritage and our culture up here. And certainly Black Lake and that area around Onaway is kind of the self-proclaimed sturgeon capital of Michigan. And without a doubt, one of the most well-studied sturgeon populations, not just in Michigan, but really in the country. So, we're proud of a lot of the restoration efforts that have occurred up there, the research, the stocking efforts, the trying to build the population back to what we think it was historically. And we're getting close. We're getting there while still trying to provide a small fishery, while we're still trying to protect that fish population, but still having a small fishery, which is very popular up there.
And I do think that's interesting. I mean, the restoration and the protection efforts, yet you do allow people to harvest some fish, apparently, though it's not a biologically negative venture. Correct.
You're absolutely right. Around 2000, when some of the locals who were anglers, who eventually became the Sturgeon for Tomorrow component up there, they were concerned over the dwindling numbers up in that region, whether it was for harvest or recruitment issues or poaching. They came to us and said, we got to start doing something about these icon fish up here. But they didn't want to give up a fishery, but we had to work with them to say, we'll have some type of managed small fishery where maybe we're taking a step back with harvesting a few adults, but we're taking 10 steps ahead with the research and some of the stocking efforts that we've been doing the last 20 years. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. A lot of people say, well, if it's a fish that's dwindling in numbers, you should just not have a fishery. Well, that's not necessarily the case. The fishery is very important. It generates a lot of interest in not just the harvest of the fish, but the restoration efforts over time and some of the money that comes back into that area. But we've stocked a lot of fish from the adults, byproducts of those adults over the last 20 years. And pretty soon, a lot of those fish are going to be hitting sexual maturity. We're hoping in the next 10, 15 years to add to the adult numbers in the lake.
How many fish are you allowing to be taken during this season, Tim?
This year, our state recreational quota is 6 fish. We work with there's a formula that we work with the tribes up here, the 5 Indian tribes who are collaborators on sturgeon management and research. We share a quota, a harvest number with them. Our half is 6 fish, and that's what we're gonna manage for 6 fish harvested this year. As it was last year, the adult population's kind of stable right now, but I think we're going to start seeing an increase in the next 5-10 years.
It won't take long to get those 6 fish based on previous years, will it?
No, it won't. But neither of us can predict what the weather's going to be February 5th.
That's for sure.
I've seen miserable seasons, and we've seen quick, easy seasons when participation was higher. We have an open fishery. It's not a quota, or it's not a lottery fishery where we're selecting people. So then you tend to get 400, 500, 600 people out on the ice. And a lot of them people are together. Like, it's not like 600 individuals. Some of them are in the same shins. You tend to see 6 fish in 4, 5, 6 hours. So It'll likely be quick based upon past seasons, but we never know.
Well, Tim, I think it's wonderful what you guys have done there in cooperation with the folks from Sturgeon for Tomorrow in reestablishing and promoting and protecting this resource. So keep up the good work and have a fun shivaree.
Fun shivaree. Well, thank you.
All right, Tim Cwalinksi of the Michigan DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. And I say shivaree because they call it the sturgeon shivaree. If I remember right. If I'm wrong, well, then wouldn't be the first time and probably won't be the last as well. In fact, why don't I plan on, I'll make myself a note. I'll get Brenda Archambault of Sturgeon for Tomorrow on the show next week to talk a little bit more about this. She's been intimately involved in this resource for more than the last 20 years. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, it's a question about batteries in your boat, and we'll have the answer coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Iron Mountain on WMIQ 1450 AM. You can hear us in Lansing, WILS 1320 AM. And you can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And the way this works is you can send me a question, send it via email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. And you can send me a question that you would like me to answer, or reach out to my network of experts and they can help us out. That's what I did this time. Pete Roth sent me an email, again, to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. And he says, Mike, as a fellow Angler Quest owner since 2019, I've got a question for your Ask Avery segment that will apply to all your boating and fishing listeners. He says, as my boat ages and I have to start thinking about replacing his 3 trolling motor batteries, it seems like everybody is singing the praises of lithium batteries. So Pete's question is, since his boat, the Angler Quest, came with sealed lead-acid batteries and the mounted automatic charger to keep them maintained, will he have to replace the charger as well when upgrading? And then he says, enjoy your show via the podcast. Keep up the good work. Now, I didn't have to include that part, but I did. Pete, I appreciate that question, and I don't know much about batteries at all, but I know a guy. I got a guy. His name is Jason Graham. He's a very well-known charter captain on Saginaw Bay, but he's also working with Linwood Beach Marina these days. Jason, welcome back to the show. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Let's talk about batteries. Batteries in boat, lithium versus lead acid. What's the thinking these days?
Well, the lithium is definitely the new era, the new age of batteries. There's no question about it. A couple things is they have a lot more power. They 10 times more power than a lead acid battery. They also have half the weight, if not more than half the weight of the batteries. So you're also taking off the weight, depending on where your batteries are located, in the back of the boat, front of the boat. The biggest difference is, as far as the chargers, I know the question asked is about the chargers. The charging system on the newer, I would say the last 3-4 years, the manufacturers are saying that you can actually use a gel cell or AGM type charger on those batteries, but not a lead acid battery charger. There's a difference. Most of the battery chargers on the market now have a switch on them, so you can actually switch the difference between the two. And it's the way the battery takes the charge is what the difference is. If the question is if lead acid is the way to go, if lithium is the way to go, there's no doubt about it. And what the manufacturers are doing now is they're actually giving you a charger as well. That's the new age of the guys buying batteries. If you buy a 36-volt system, the manufacturer is putting a charger in to make sure those batteries are selling you are the correct chargers for the batteries.
So on his 2019 Angler Quest, it could go either way on his charger then?
It could go. If he just got a regular charger on that, it's probably a lead-acid charger. If he got the new Minn Kota Precision charger, it will work, but most of the manufacturers are actually, they're telling you it will work, but you're better off buying a package with a battery and chargers as a complete package.
So can you use a lithium battery as a cranking battery too?
Not right off the get-go. The lithium batteries now are the manufacturer is starting to build those batteries now as a cranking battery. But they're not. They're designed to have a long charge, a long lead time to make your trolling motor, your electronics, that kind of stuff run. Not necessarily a cranking battery for your big motors, where it takes an initial jump start to get the battery going. That's not what the batteries are designed for. But the manufacturers are going into that system, and they're actually a few of the manufacturers list a cranking battery now for a lithium. But it's really not needed yet unless you're running multiple head units for fish finders, drafts, the bass boat market. The guys are running 2 on the dash, 2 on the bow, or 3 on the bow, 3 on the dash, your 360 imaging, your Garmin Panoptics, that kind of stuff. Those guys are running a separate lithium battery just for electronics to keep the sound and the distraction noise away from those units.
So lithium, definitely the way to go in the future.
It's absolutely the way to go as far as, what they're telling, whatever I've seen and read is they are 10 times better than a lead-acid battery and 6 times better than an AGM gel cell battery.
What about cost? How do they compare cost-wise?
Cost-wise, they are more expensive, okay? But with the expense, it's because of the cobalt in the battery itself. That's the expense of the battery. As we go on, day to day, year by year, the prices are coming down. But in the long-term wise, most of the battery manufacturers are offering anywhere from a 9 to 11-year warranty on those. And typically the first 5 or 6 years is complete replacement. And prorated after that, where a battery on the market nowadays, a gel cell or an AGM or a lead acid, is 1 year or 2 year, and prorated after that. So you're paying for the warranty up front, but also it's going to last you a lot longer as well.
Jason Graham of Linwood Beach Marina, appreciate you helping me out on this week's Ask Avery segment, and you and I will be in touch.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
All right. LinwoodBeachMarina.com, by the way, LinwoodBeachMarina.com. Thank you, Pete Roth, for asking that question. It is an excellent question, and I hope you are enjoying your 2019 Angler Quest, and I'm sure you are. And again, a special thanks to our friends at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Their website, securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We will take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our final hour, hour number 3 this week, we will continue on with this fishing theme and head down to the southwest corner of the state to St. Joe and the St. Joe River, and we'll be talking with charter captain down there. I had him on the Offshore Tackle podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I was so impressed I wanted to get him back on the radio show. His name is Jerry Link from Originator Charters. We'll talk with him in hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. Welcome to hour number 3 of this week's show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue our journey, our 3-hour journey, our 3-hour weekly journey into the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. So what's going on right now in the great outdoors here in our great state of Michigan? A lot of hunt going on right now. Predator hunting, a lot of rabbit hunting going on right now. Pretty soon it's going to be time to start looking for shed whitetail antlers as well. I'm looking to get somebody on the show here in the next couple of weeks to talk about that, but I'm just haven't quite found the right person yet. What else? A lot of ice fishing going on across the state, right? But in some parts of our state, they're still fishing open water. Southern part of the state, the rivers are still wide open in a lot of cases. Jerry Link is a guy that likes to take advantage of that open water fishery. I had Jerry on an offshore tackle podcast a couple of weeks ago and found him to be a very knowledgeable and very interesting guy. And I was thinking at the time, Jerry would be a great guy to have on the radio show as well. So I followed up on that. And he said, yeah, I'd be happy to do it. His name is Jerry Link. He's out of St. Joe. His company is Originator Charters. The website, originatorcharters.com, originatorcharters.com. Hey, Jerry, welcome to the radio show. It was great talking with you on the Offshore podcast.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So listen, tell me a little bit about your operation. For folks who didn't hear the Offshore podcast, you're there in St. Joe, and you've been on the water a long time.
Yeah, so I have two boats. I have a 36-foot Tierra that I fish Lake Michigan with primarily from about the middle of March until about the end of October. And then we move into the St. Joe River, and I have a heated enclosed 26-foot tri-tune that I fish basically the 1st of November until we put the lake boat back in around the 15th of March. So,
steelhead, salmon, walleye, what?
Yeah, so we start chasing the coal right away. We put the lake boat in March and about the middle of March and close to the shoreline, and then move on to the king salmon along with the mixed bag of lake trout and steelhead and even occasional brown trout. But right now we're focused on the St. Joe River, chasing primarily steelhead, occasional walleye in our heated enclosed tri-tune.
Oh, a couple of things get my attention. Heated, enclosed, and tri-tune. That's a pretty good combination.
Enclosed cabin, that is, yeah.
Sure, yeah. Well,
so we run a 30...
I was going to say that St. Joe River and the whole St. Joe area is a very interesting part of our state with a great fishery.
It is, and the St. Joe River is the second longest, widest, deepest river that feeds Lake Michigan. It's over 200 miles long, as you know, and it has over 17 major dams, and it's fed by hundreds of tributaries. So we're pretty fortunate to have it. So,
well, I did not realize that. You say second deepest. Is that because it's dredged?
No. So I mean, it just happens to be, I think partly so, but the deepest hole between St. Joe, the pier heads and the dam is around 30 foot. There's several of them. But just, some of the natural turns, some of the really sharp turns tend to make for some of the bigger, deeper runs.
Does that river ever freeze up, Jerry?
It does on the lower end. It tends to freeze faster. Like right now, some of our channels, like the Morrison Channel and the lower part, there is some ice down there. But oddly enough, from like maybe the Blossom Land Bridge out to the lake, it's wide open, ironically. But then also up from there, it's pretty wide open from the Benton Township launch all the way pretty much up to, I'd say, on up the river there. So from what I can tell anyways, but I primarily fish this time of year out of Berrien Springs. I fish close to the dam, so there's a lot of current, and it doesn't tend to freeze up there. And if it does, not for very long. We might get a little shore ice along the edge in the morning, but other than that, it's pretty open.
Is that why you concentrate on that upper stretch, because it does stay open?
That's primarily this time of year, and it's just a little bit more creature friendly for my customers. There's some heated bathrooms and a heated fish cleaning station. To be honest, just makes it a little bit more, a little bit easier for all parties being. So
hey, that's enough reason for me. I'd be up there as well.
Yeah, I mean it's really handy.
Where do your clients come from? I'm thinking where you're at there, man, you're close to an awful lot of people. Do you bring folks up out of Chicago?
Oh, yeah. We're pulling them from Chicago quite a bit, Indianapolis, St. Louis, pretty much all over, though, the state. I've had them literally fish from all over the world, from companies and things bringing people in, but people from Detroit, people from all over the state of Michigan as well.
I'm curious because I run a triple tube, a tri-tune as well, but I have not fished the river other than trolling. How are you set up? How do you fish the river?
So we basically run a number of rods, basically some plug rods and also some rods with either spawn, raw spawn or spawn sacks. And basically we anchor and we fish the runs and fish the for the steelhead, and we do a little bit of sliding. Slide the holes is what it's called. So it's very hands-on for the customer, especially if they pretty much have a rod in their hand all day, bounce and spawn, and they actually get to hook their own fish. So it's a lot of fun, and people tend to really enjoy it.
Nothing like having a rod in your hand when a fish bites, especially a fish like a steelhead.
Exactly. Yeah, I say pound for pound, you're not going to catch a fish that's probably going to give you a bigger fight than that. I've had people on my boat that said they've caught 40, 50, 60-pound fish offshore in the ocean, and that didn't give as good a fight as what those steelhead will give them.
Well, out in the big lake, you hook a steelhead, and you've got your hands full, and they can go anywhere. In the river, you've got that same fish, and there's not that many places he can go.
Exactly, but they're really smart fish, though. I mean, they tend to, they either head for the motor or try to get under the boat or try to head for a log jam. It's almost instinctive for a lot of them. But it's definitely can be challenging at times, but definitely rewarding and a lot of fun.
What is your percentage rate then of fish that come to the net versus ones you hook and you never see them?
Oh, I'd say that depends sometimes on the clients, on how well they listen and how well they hook up. Sometimes people tend to do their own things and not get a good hook set, or just not really know. Sometimes they don't even know they're hooked. They'll just like lift up and they're like, oh, they start to reel and they're like, oh, there's a fish on here, and it takes off, and then it's like game on. So, but I'd say with hooking them with the spawn sacks and stuff, that just varies day to day. Sometimes you go days when they hook just about every single one, and there's other ones where you miss the first 3 or 4, and it can be a little puzzling at times. But generally speaking, if they get hooked up and if they can fight them for more than a minute or two, we generally land them.
Well, and I'm thinking about these clients. If you've got people who are not experienced in this type of fishery and you start asking them to fish spawn, that's kind of a challenge.
Yeah, and that's a lot of my job is, most of the people that come, unless they fished with me for years or fished with other people, some of them have never caught a fish like that ever in their life. And it's really, it's a neat opportunity for them. And it's very rewarding for them. But so I spend most of my time coaching them and talking them through it, and trying to calm them down a little bit. Once their adrenaline starts flowing, usually they tend to forget everything you told them ahead of time. So.
Well, and listen, don't you want to catch fish that gets adrenaline going? I mean, that's the whole goal, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I just hope that you're getting through to them a little bit so that they calm down a little bit. Some people get overexcited and it gets pretty crazy out there, but they definitely enjoy it for sure. And once they catch their first steelhead, they're hooked.
Literally, I bet they are. And I'm thinking of you as a captain there. It would be fun to get a seasoned crew out there because you can kind of sit back and just, watch them do their thing and you can enjoy that experience. But, man, you bring a group of people out there who have not done this before, and you are their introduction to the sport, and you get to show them how much fun it is. That's got to be rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. And rewarding and challenging at the same time, but definitely rewarding. Yeah.
We're talking with Jerry Link of Originator Charters, originatorcharters.com. He is a fishing guide, charter captain out of St. Joe, the southwest corner of Michigan's Lower Peninsula. They still have open water right now, and Jerry will probably be fishing open water for steelhead right on through the winter. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I want to talk more about this wintertime steelhead fishery and then move on into their springtime fishery as well. You know me, I'm a walleye guy. I got to believe that the pier heads out there at the mouth of the St. Joe River jutting into Lake Michigan have got to be surrounded by monster walleye. But Jerry also runs a big boat in the summertime, and their fishery down there is a little bit different in that they don't have the depth of water. They don't have the structure that the folks off, say, Frankfurt or Ludington or Manistee or even Ludington have. So we'll talk more about that and just what it's like to be a fishing guide, a charter captain in southwest Michigan, so close to so many people. More about that and much more right here on Outdoor Magazine. you can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Holland on WHTC, that's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ, 97.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knifeworks. I was talking with Kris Derson of Rapid River in the second hour of this week's show about a very cool Idaho mountain lion hunting adventure he was on. He said he caped that animal with one of his Rapid River knives. I think that's pretty cool. I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. I always carry it. And I like carrying it because, you know, a knife is so useful. I use it all the time, but I think it's really neat to have a handmade piece of art, yet is so functional in my pocket, made right here in Michigan by Michigan craftsmen. I would encourage you to check out their website, rapidriverknifeworks.com. That's rapidriverknifeworks.com. If you get a chance, swing by their showroom off US 2 in Rapid River. You'll be very, very impressed. rapidriverknifeworks.com. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I've been talking with Marie, my webmaster extraordinaire, about revamping that website. Look for that to happen pretty soon. And then head on over to originatorcharters.com, originatorcharters.com, the website of Jerry Link, who is a fishing guide and charter captain out of St. Joe, the St. Joe River, and Lake Michigan as well. Jerry, I remember during the podcast, you had talked about something very interesting, and that was for either boat anglers or shore anglers using those offshore boards to get your baits out to the side in a situation like that. I normally think of that as a trolling presentation, but your idea makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, well, this time of year, the water tends to be pretty clean, and there isn't a lot of leaves or anything, and it works pretty well this time of year. Especially, you'll tend to see people using them more often than not because it just gives them an extra part of their arsenal to get that bait, especially when they're trolling like a mag lip or a flatfish or something like that, to help get it away from the boat or away from the bank, and just, puts it out there in a little more stealthier pattern there.
When you talk about plugs or crankbaits or whatever you want to call them, wiggleworts, Hottentots, whatever, flatfish, aren't you the guy who told me you were actually using some old-fashioned flatfish?
We do at times for sure. In the really fast water, I like to use more of the mag lips. They tend to stay down better, but definitely in that slacker water, slower water, definitely the flatfish still have their place for sure.
Oh my goodness! Think about how many fish have been caught in Michigan on flatfish over the years.
I know. That's what I started with, those and Hottentots. Like you said, it's been a great bait, and still remains to be a good bait.
Yeah. Well, why, you talk about, live bait and spawn versus plugs. It's got to be easier for your clients and maybe easier for you as a captain if you would just run a line of plugs down through a hole. I mean, when you got the hit, when they're hooked up, right? Yeah,
for sure. But they seems like, for me anyways, it seems like they tend to lose more fish on the plugs. It seems like they don't always get as good a hook set. I mean, not always, and there's no absolutes, but generally speaking, I don't know. It's two totally different ways of doing it, and they're both effective. And right now, they're both working for me. But I definitely, I don't know. There's something about having that rod in your hand and feeling that bite, and being able to set the hook. I ask people what they enjoy the most, and generally speaking, they like to have that rod in their hand when it hits. Not that you can't be holding a rod with the plug in your hand. I've had people do that too, and they're equally as excited. But usually when they hook the plugs, they're pretty much already set. Whereas when we're fishing more of the spawn bags and things like that, they got to pretty much set the hook.
Well, walk me through that, because you said it's very important that your clients do this the right way. If I was a rank beginner and didn't know anything about this, walk me through the right way to bounce this down through a hole, detect the hit, and get the fish to the boat.
Yeah, so basically what we're doing is we're anchored in the current, and you're picking the rod up, and as you pick the weight off the bottom, the current is naturally strong enough that it generally pulls back. So I tell them just pick it up, just an inch, a couple inches off the bottom, let that current work it back a little ways. And some people have trouble with that. So sometimes what we just do is we'll just, because they can't feel the bottom, and if we're sliding with the boat backwards, they tend to get hung up underneath the boat. So what we'll generally do then is just cast it out for them a little bit and just have them pick it up a little bit off the bottom, pick it up a little bit off, and they'll feel that bite. It's generally when they're lifting up, they'll feel that bite. And so we just slide back on them and sliding the boat back very slowly into the current and, through the runs. And generally speaking, the steelhead are very territorial, and they'll tend to hit, typically, depends on what time of the year and water level, but they're only going to back up so far, and then they're usually going to hit that bait, whether it be a plug or whether it be that spawn bag in front of their face.
And then once the fish is on, what is... it's a heck of a fight, I know that, but what can the angler do to try to increase odds of getting that fish actually into the boat?
Basically, just keeping pressure and keeping tension on that fish all the time. The biggest thing they try to do is, the beginners, is as soon as they hook the fish, they drop the rod down. It's their instinct for some reason. Once they hook, I tell them, I said, you're committed at that point. Just keep pressure on them and let us get the other rods out of the way, especially if it's a hot fish. We want to get them other rods out of the way so that we don't end up with tangles. But keeping pressure on that fish and just, not yanking on the fish, not jerking on the fish, just smooth motions going through and keeping, reeling and letting the rod do a lot of the work too. That's the big thing too. A lot of times customers want to aim right at that fish and if they drop that rod just a little bit and quit reeling, then if they're not hooked well, then that's generally when they get away. So keeping the rod bent off to the side when it gets close to the boat, down low towards the water when it starts to jump a lot. I know people love to see the fish jump, but generally speaking, when they jump, is a lot of times especially with plugs, is when they tend to come off. So keeping that rod down, the tip down low, and just steady pressure on the fish.
Are you running mono or braided line?
This time of year, I run mono pretty much and fluorocarbon. Is
it because the braid freezes and it isn't as
with
pliable?
The cold weather, I find it to be, it's tougher especially on the super cold mornings. I tend to find that the braid doesn't work as well for me, but I guess it's whatever you're accustomed to and whatever you feel most comfortable with. But I do use some braid when we're bobber dogging and stuff earlier in the season, but and not that I wouldn't use it now, but I don't know. It's something I guess growing up with monofilament and just something I know you have less stretch with the braided lines and things, and I know guys that use them, but generally speaking, when it's super cold, I don't think it works as well.
Bobber dog, and I've never heard that before. That's great. I'm gonna steal that, Jerry. I love that. So right now you're right in the heart of your wintertime fishery. As we move into spring, how does this change? Do you fish different stretches of the river and use different techniques, or is it basically the same thing, just a different time of year?
Like I said before, generally speaking, when it gets super cold like that, a lot of times those fish tend to be up closer to the wood and the down trees and things like that. So we're not afraid to sometimes, if we can't get them in the center of the river, to slide over and just work some of those tighter areas, that can tend to be a little snaggier, but can definitely produce a few more fish here and there.
As the water warms up, are you thinking, is it current flow? Is it clarity? Is it water temp? I mean, what are the key factors you're looking at as you get towards spring?
Being a guide, we've got to fish everything. So we don't always get to pick our days. Some of these people come up here, it's a one-shot deal. They, I mean, if it's horrible, we'll let them know. But if we fish stained water, cloudy water, dirty water, clean water. Generally speaking, right now the water is pretty much, it's just about like drinking water, clarity-wise. It's like gin clear. It's so they can see everything we can see. So definitely, you can see in the shallow areas, you can see the rocks on the bottom and the whole bottom contour and everything. So generally just being, fishing, slower presentations when it's colder water tends to work a little bit better than a faster presentation. Just keeping that bait in front of them, whether it be a plug or be in the spawn, the longer you keep it in front of them, the more your chances are they're going to hit it.
Now, in the past, I was going to say a normal year, an average year, which I don't think there is such a thing anymore. But in the past, when do you leave the river and head out into the big lake?
Well, like I said, for me, I like to leave the river usually by about the 15th of March. Especially with the winters being lighter and lighter now, we tend to get out into the lake and start catching a lot of fast limits of coho. So generally speaking, about the 15th or so, I'm focused on the lake as much as I can. Now, if it's too rough to get on the lake or something, we can always, have that river to fall back on, because the steelhead aren't going to spawn until March anyway. So, and they're like anything. Some spawn early, some spawn late, some spawn in the middle. It's not an exact science, exact time of when they all spawn. So.
That southern Michigan coho fishery you guys have is second to none. You don't have the warm water discharge you used to, though, do you?
Oh yeah, where we're located, we have still have the cook plant.
You still have that's still out there. All right.
Yeah, that's still there. So we definitely have that warm water discharge, and generally speaking, those coho tend to be along the shoreline anyways, in the shallowest water they can find, because it's the warmest water. So yeah, we get right on them right away, and like I said, a lot of fast limits and a lot of anglers along the shoreline, and as well as out on the piers at that time as well.
Yeah, several years ago, I came down with some buddies and took advantage of that coho fishery, and it was unbelievable. So you got a great resource, you got a great fishery there, Jerry, and I would encourage people to get in touch with you and book a trip either for a wintertime river trip, a springtime river trip, or a big lake trip as well. The website, originatorcharters.com, originatorcharters.com. Thanks, Jerry. We'll talk again.
Hey, sounds good. Thanks.
All right, Jerry Link of Originator Charters. Again, one more time, the website, originatorcharters.com. By the way, if you want to hear Jerry talk more about fishing that part of the state and his relationship with offshore tackle, head to the website, offshoretackle.com. That's offshoretackle.com. And on the website, Offshore has all of the podcasts, and we've done a bunch of them over the years, talking with a lot of very good anglers, trolling anglers, obviously, primarily, but salmon, trout, walleye, crappie, striper. I mean, we've covered it all. That's offshoretackle.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. Lots more coming up, and we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Marquette on WDMJ. That's 1320 AM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM, 95.3 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW, News Radio 790 and 100.5 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. From plumbing, heating, air conditioning, sump pumps, ductwork cleaning, you name it, everything to keep you warm, dry, and comfortable in your house. The folks at Wilds can do it. Their slogan is, whatever it takes, and they have proven that to me over and over again. Whatever it takes. WildsPlumbingandHeating.com, if I didn't mention that. Once again, thank you for joining me on this edition of the Outdoor Magazine show. It is truly a pleasure, an honor, and a blessing to be able to sit at this microphone every week and talk about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle. And it takes on so many different aspects, so many different facets. I mean, you look at this week's show alone. We've talked about Jordan Farmer losing one of his dogs to wolves in the UP, Nick Green following up with licensing of guides, and Kris Derson on this wonderful mountain lion hunt out west. But the one thing that stands out in that, and I'm going to get myself off topic here, but I'm going to take a risk. I can get back to where I want to go. Thinking about the negative comments that Kris got on just the post that I put on my Facebook page, and man, I tell you, I don't know about Facebook. If I didn't have to use Facebook for business purposes, I'm not sure I would even be on it, because the negativity that comes out of that social media platform is sometimes overwhelming. And I see it primarily with hunters turning on other hunters. I don't know why it is. I don't know why we as hunters, I feel like, especially as hunters, I don't see anglers doing this as much. If I was in the golfing world, I don't know if golfers would do it or whatever area I tended to be talking about. But in my world, in the hunting world, I see this all the time. For some reason, for whatever reason, we're having a hard time supporting each other. And we need to do that these days. And listen, if you are a hunter, you're a hunter. It doesn't matter what you hunt, right? A lot of times I will see, well, for example, dog hunters, the houndsmen, get a lot of grief from the bait hunters in the bear hunting world. And I understand there are some conflicts and sometimes things happen, but overall, we need to stick together. Several of the people who commented on Kris Duerson's mountain lion hunt were hunters. And if you clicked on their profile and backtracked them, they were sitting there with a big smile as they held a white-tailed buck in their hands or something like that, or they're anglers. If you support hunting and fishing and you support sound scientific wildlife management, which is part of that plan, is you have to take out top-tier predators, not all of them, but some of them. You have to thin out different herds, whether it's turkeys, bear, or whitetails or something. You have to hunt them. But why is it okay for you to, not you, I'm not talking to you directly, but you as a group, for you to shoot a white-tailed buck, but it's not okay for a guy like Kris to take a mountain lion? And why is it that it's okay for you? It's not only okay, it's somehow revered and treasured for you to go to northern Michigan and shoot a grouse. But if you go to those same woods and you run coyotes with dogs, you're somehow a dirtbag. You know, look at the western states. Look at the battles they're going through right now. Arizona and Utah banning trail cameras. Colorado in a fight right now to save their bobcat and mountain lion hunts. Bear hunting has come under attack. Here in Michigan, we lost our dove hunt because we wouldn't stand up for ourselves. We caved into the antis. I am concerned that here in Michigan, that our powers that be won't push for a wolf hunt. And I'm not quite sure why. I don't know if it's a political agenda, or my greatest fear is that the antis have already planted a seed in the ear, planted a bug in the ear of the powers that be, because they don't seem willing to fight it. I know there's a lot else going on. There's COVID going on. There's CWD going on. There's budget battles going on. There's a lot going on. But I don't see any real drive coming out of Lansing for a wolf hunt. Let's pray it's not because, well, I think it is because of the anti-hunters. I think they've proven that they just don't have the mindset and the desire to pick a fight with the anti-hunting groups. We've got to stick together as outdoorsmen and women, as hunters, as trappers, even anglers, shooters. We're all in this together. It's our way of life. It's our history. It's our tradition. And if we don't stand up for it, and if we don't get behind it, and if we don't fight for it, and more importantly, if we don't quit turning on ourselves and infighting and complaining about our fellow legal hunters and anglers, we're going to open the door for these anti-hunting whack jobs to come in here and take it away. And you might think, Avery, you're crazy. You're overstating the threat. Maybe. I hope so. But at least it gets the conversation going. We're all in this together, my friends. And if we want our grandkids to be able to enjoy what our grandparents did, it's up to us. We are the stewards. And now is our time. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name's Mike Avery, also known as the Big Guy. So glad to have you along with us. Also glad to be able to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire and my good friend Dave Miner. And Dave, I know that we had talked about doing a recipe, and we may still get to that, but I forgot about something. I want to promote something. The tickets for our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction are now available, and I want to make sure we let people know about that.
Okay, great. We got a great meal planned, When I talked to Rich, he said we were going to do about the same as a couple of years ago. And so that'll be wild boar and elk and venison. And then we've got, for our non-inspected table, we've got some beaver, coyote, bobcat. Scott from Linwood Taxidermy was kind enough to save me some real nice, wholesome meat, he said. And got muskrat, we got rabbit, we'll have squirrel. All of that will be on the non-inspected table. So we've got a heck of a meal planned. So,
and this is Saturday, March 5th at Bay Valley Resort, just off I-75 in Bay County. For tickets, folks can call 989-662-4891, 989-662-4891. Please call during the week. Don't call here on the weekend, 989-662-4891. Dave, we haven't done one in a couple of years. We're very excited to get back and putting this together, and I got to believe you are as well.
Me too. We've turned away a lot of dinners over the past while due to, COVID and shortage of staff. But I've got my catering crew all lined up. We should have no problem to put this together and be as good as ever. Hopefully.
Well, that's what we're hoping. I think, personally, I'm a little bit rusty because I haven't done one of these in a couple of years. So I got to get myself back in the swing, but we're going to do a lot of gun raffles and auctions. We're going to auction off some fishing trips, including a trip or two walleye fishing with me on Saginaw Bay. We've got some Lake Michigan salmon trips. We've got some fishing trips. We've got Michigan brand meats for a year. We've got Rapid River knives, offshore tackle, shoulder mounts. I mean, we've got so much great stuff to auction off again, and it's for a good cause. It's to help out our school there at Trinity Monitor. And Dave, you are a big part of this and a huge draw, and we do certainly appreciate it.
Well, thank you, and you can count us in for a dinner for four. Whatever they want at the restaurant. We'll make sure that we treat your folks really good, whoever wins it.
I will add that to my list right now. And speaking of treating us well, we really enjoyed our Pastor's Appreciation and Elders Dinner from Trinity there with you last week.
Oh, great.
Because as we're sitting here in the studio, we haven't done it yet, but I'm sure it was a good time.
It's going to be. We're all set. We're all geared up for you guys. So it's just a pleasure to see your elders and yourself again, at the restaurant in a relaxed atmosphere like that where we can just sit and chat.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Listen, we don't have time for a recipe, but just touch on this briefly. I had Kris Derson of Rapid River Knives on the show earlier. He took a beautiful mountain lion out west. He said it was outstanding. And you've also told me that Bobcat is surprisingly good as well.
Right. Well, we've served it at your meal before.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because Scott from Linwood gave us Bobcat before, and then I know a guy farther up north there from over by the Rose City area. He was a trapper, and he got us the beaver, and he gave me some Bobcat, too. And we used to get African lion and mountain lion from a place out of Chicago called Unique Foods. They were an exotic game purveyor, and we used to get like mountain lion and peacock, African lion, crocodile, kudu, impala, zebra, anything that you get in the zoo, because this was the clearinghouse for the older animals, because everybody likes to see the young babies in a zoo, and so they got put into the human food chain.
Everything that you serve at the restaurant, even the wild game, I mean, this all has to be certified. Like, somebody couldn't bring in some venison off their buck and ask you to cook it up at the restaurant. That's just not allowed, is it? Yes,
if I can cook it and give them whatever left over and charge them a fee, that's completely acceptable. We've done that with people with fish. there used to be some guys that used to go down on a quail hunt to Georgia, and they used to shoot ducks and quail and all of that. And he'd be bringing 12 or 14 guys and bring me just a ton of meat. I'd cook it for them, charge them accordingly, and then they could take their leftovers home and disperse it amongst the family members. It used to be great. Things have changed around a lot. People are, I don't know, kind of calmed down a little bit. When we were, restaurant was, Old Dixie Inn, Dixie Dave's Old Dixie Inn, we were really noted for the game, but we've kind of toned it down, but we still have the game, elk, venison, wild boar, buffalo.
Excellent to know, David. Always a pleasure. Thanks for helping us out, and you and I will talk again soon.
Talk to me after off air.
All right, will do. Wild Game Chef Extraordinaire Dave Miner. Again, a reminder, if you want tickets for our Trinity Monitor Wild Game Dinner and Auction, Chef Dave Miner is catering the event. I will be the auctioneer, and believe me, we've got some great prizes that we're auctioning off once again. Lots of guns as well. We know you like those. Call 989-662-4891 for tickets. Don't wait, though, because we're going to sell this out, and they're selling quickly. 989-662-4891. It's Saturday, March 5th at Bay Valley Resort in Bay County right here in the great state of Michigan. All right, my friends, I got to let you go. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.